Tomorrow is trash day, and the day after that is dump day. So I thought I would go ahead and take this time to kind of give you the anatomy, if you will, of the old table saw stand. The old torsion box, my very first one that I ever built. Let's see, wow, that has to be, I guess 5, 6, 7 years ago, something like that. And it's lasted well. I've replaced the top a couple of times. Last time I did it, I did just take a piece of 1/4-inch Luan and throw it on there because, well, I had it laying around and it needed a new top, so I just threw it on real quick. And believe it or not, that Luan really holds up to the weather very well. If I had my way, I would have actually built the new table saw out of 3/4-inch Luan. I used that in another torsion box that I built for a large Delta 13-inch planer that I had. I know 13-inch doesn't sound like a lot, but it did take several of us to load that in the back of the truck. The base was about yay thick cast iron. That was heavy, solid state. I think when I sold that unit, I probably sold it for less than scrap value, so shame on me. But as you can see, here is the old table saw. The top's not even bolted down really anymore. There's one screw holding. There's no screws holding it on. And all it was constructed with was 2x4s and 7/16 OSB. Nothing else really fancy. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and take the camera off the mount here now. I'm going to go over here and we'll kind of take a tour of this old torsion box. We'll see what I was able to do in my infancy of building these things, what I've done differently since then. This is the second version that I have built of this table saw. The new one now is the third version of it. The very first one, all I did was I used MDF because I heard how great MDF is. So okay, I'm going to use MDF because it's nice and smooth, it's stable, this, that, the other thing. Well, all I did was I took a sheet of MDF, and all of these saws, by the way, have basically been about the same size, roughly 44 by 84. Let the truck go by. That was intentional, so that it would be able to fit in the back of my 4x8 trailer with the sides on it. So what I did is I just took this flat sheet of MDF and I took 2x4s, laid on their side, not even upright, but laid on their side, and I bolted them to the underside, actually, of that MDF, thinking that's going to be strong enough. Well, let me tell you, no paint on that thing. It sat in the garage, which, as you can see behind me, there's swing out doors on there that don't work, and it just sucked all that moisture right up, and it finally wound up bowing right in the middle. It never actually broke, but under the weight of that table saw, even with it being at the end, it still caused everything to just kind of teeter back, bow and fold and right in on itself. When we unbolted it, part of that MDF was kind of like a sponge. You could almost wring it out. Never been outside, you know, in the rain. It just, coming up from the ground, it just soaked everything in. So, okay, we're going to go and take a look at this thing now. I've got it up on an old, little Movers cart here. That cart actually came with a Grizzly bandsaw that I used to have. I guess that's how the guy liked to move the thing around. So as we get closer, we'll throw the top off. Right here is where the saw itself used to sit. I actually had the saw bolted to 2 pieces of angle iron, which were then leg bolted into the ends here, this 2x4. I had recently picked up a nail gun when I started building this thing too, so some of the nails are actually hand driven, some of the nails are actually driven in with a nail gun. I went crazy with stuff. But anyway, this was our port so that all the dust was supposed to be able to fall from underneath the saw And this back here was the motor, and of course a dust guard to help keep everything, I just gave myself a sliver, to try and keep the dust from flowing. Oh, oops, don't put too much weight on there. But as you can see, and I have already knocked off a lot of dust here, it did not drop the dust out. Right here, even more sawdust. In the front, I had this nice little hook. What this hook was for is I always planned on getting one of those boat cranks from Harbor Freight, mounting it on my trailer, and that way I could just put the hook through here and actually crank the whole saw up onto the trailer, and I'd never have to stress myself out. I could always put it on alone. Well, as it turns out, I discovered that if I put the saw on the trailer backwards, so the light end over there lifted up very easy because all the weight was over here. I could lift that end up, put it up on the trailer, and basically come to this side and push it the rest of the way up on the trailer without ever tilting it. And lifting it properly with your knees, not your back, I could hoist this end up most of the way and get it pretty much up there on the trailer on my own, leaving the wheels hanging off. But I never went very far with it anyway. My old shop was a mile away from the house, so it didn't have to go very far. I took it over there, and when I closed that shop down, I brought it back over here. So it never really did get any trailer time. Back here, this was always, in the first two versions, I had this little shelf made. And this actually did serve a purpose. This was so I could cut out the top and mount the miter saw in here. So you could put a top in here, just kind of like a knockout top, slide it in there when you didn't use the miter saw, and pull it out and put the miter saw in when you needed to use it. As you can see, I never even bolted it down because I never even used it. This board running down the middle was for nothing more than support, and that way I had all this space for storage. The intention was always that, hey, you know, I can put my circular saw in its box, the biscuit joiner in its box, the Kreg jig in its box. Everything came in boxes, so why not just put it back in its box, slide it in here. You don't need drawers or anything like that. Well, as you can see, all the sawdust that flew around, and what it was, sorry about that, not sure how much that took. Again, using your cell phone as your camera, not always the greatest idea, because if it rings, it stops recording. But anyway, it was definitely a nice sturdy construction. I mean, I could definitely stand on the thing, it would hold up. It's not that terribly heavy, but whatever. So I'm going to roll it over now. We'll take a look at the underside. Okay, so here is the underside. And surprisingly enough, wow, it has held up very well. This actually sat in a gravel storage lot, wow, for about 6 months or so. And it actually held up very well. It did. Okay, so anyway, we've got, crawling around on the asphalt, never good. Okay, so we've got our 2x4s that run the full length, a couple of cross braces. Not so sure you can actually call this necessarily a torsion box, but back then it kind of was. We've got some more supports to help hold up the saw, and right here in the middle I actually ran crisscross 2x4s on their sides, sandwiched in with some OSB board in the middle of it. You know, and in reality, this thing did very well. If I really needed to, I could have just replaced the top again on this thing, and it would have kept on going for a while longer. I just wanted to get something a bit more storage friendly built. So that's what we got going on with the new saw. Another thing I didn't point out, We got the cross brace here in the back. There was at one time a handle on the back, which was nothing more than a stair rail. And I wanted to make sure that as I pushed that, nothing really folded over. So by putting this cross brace on here, and again being able to load things from the back, it never really flexed at all. You know, I wish I had more casters. I'd just go ahead and repurpose this thing as a lumber cart or something like that. But I'm sure I can salvage some of the lumber off of this thing, use it for other stuff around here around the house,